So there I was, watching the single dumbest military decision in galactic history unfold in real time. And let me tell you, I've seen some spectacularly stupid choices in my 30 years as a diplomatic attaché, but this one was going to go down in the history books right next to, hey, let's invade Russia in winter and what could possibly go wrong with this Death Star. General Krex of the Vortakian Empire stood at the head of his war council, all four arms spread wide in what he probably thought was an impressive display of authority. His purple chitinous shell gleamed under the harsh lighting of the command deck, and his three eyes were practically glowing with what he mistook for tactical brilliance. Behold, he announced to his assembled officers, the key to humanity's surrender. On the main display screen, 26 human children sat in what looked like the galaxy's most depressing cafeteria. They were still wearing their bright yellow field trip t-shirts, the ones that read Washington Elementary explores the stars in cheerful blue letters. Most of them were around 8 or 9 years old, and they looked about as impressed with their alien captors as kids usually look when forced to eat vegetables. Sir, ventured Commander Yarak, Krex's second-in-command and the only Vortakian I'd met with half a brain. Are we certain this is wise? Human offspring are weak, Krex interrupted, waving a dismissive claw. Just like their parents, humans are soft, Yarak. They have no natural armor, no venomous stingers, no ability to breathe in vacuum. They're basically walking meat sacks held together by anxiety and false confidence. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Or screaming. Maybe both. But General, Yarak pressed, intelligence reports suggest that humans can be somewhat protective of their young. Protective. Krex let out what I assumed was supposed to be a laugh, though it sounded more like a garbage disposal eating silverware. Commander, I've studied human military tactics. They send their warriors to die for abstract concepts like honor and democracy. They're clearly not that attached to individual lives. Oh buddy, oh you sweet doomed purple space lobster, you have no idea what you've just done. The door to the command center hissed open, and in walked Captain Torres, Earth's chief negotiator. If you've never met Torres, imagine someone who looks like they could bench press a small car but chooses to solve problems with words instead. The kind of person who makes everyone nervous not because they're loud, but because they're terrifyingly calm. General Krex, Torres said in that level, professional tone that should have sent every alien in the room scrambling for the escape pods. I believe we need to talk. Krex's chest puffed out with pride. Ah, Captain Torres, I assume you're here to discuss Earth's unconditional surrender in exchange for the safe return of these small humans. Torres glanced at the screen showing the kids, then back at Krex. For just a moment, something flickered across his face. Something that made the temperature in the room feel like it had dropped about 10 degrees. Actually, Torres said, pulling out his communication device, I think we should call their parents first. You know, let them know what's happened. I'm sure they'll want to be involved in the conversation. If I hadn't been watching Krex so closely, I might have missed it. The tiny twitch in his leftmost eye, the almost imperceptible pause before he nodded. Of course, he said, let them hear their offspring's voices one last time before Earth bows to the mighty Vortakian Empire. Torres smiled then, not a happy smile, not even a cruel smile. It was the kind of smile that says, you poor stupid creature, you have no idea what's about to happen to you. And that's when I knew. The Vortakian Empire, in all their purple-shelled four-armed glory, had just made the kind of mistake that civilizations don't survive. They'd kidnapped human children. God help them all. Torres tapped his communicator with the casual ease of someone ordering coffee, not someone about to unleash hell itself. Priority channel to Earth. Parent notification protocol. Parent notification protocol. Parent notification protocol. Krex asked, those three eyes blinking in what might have been confusion. What is this protocol? Oh, it's simple, Torres replied, not looking up from his device. When human children are in danger, we call their parents. Standard procedure. The first connection crackled to life, and a woman's voice filled the command center. Hello? This is Janet Morrison. Is everything okay? Tommy's supposed to be on his field trip to the space station. Torres glanced at the screen showing the kids, found a boy with sandy hair and freckles, then spoke into the communicator. Mrs. Morrison, this is Captain Torres with Earth Diplomatic Corps. I need to inform you that Tommy and his classmates have been taken by hostile aliens as leverage against Earth. There was a pause. A very long pause. The kind of pause that happens right before a tornado touches down. I'm sorry, Janet Morrison said, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped another 5 degrees. Did you just tell me that aliens kidnapped my son? Yes, ma'am. My Tommy. My 8-year-old Tommy who still sleeps with his stuffed dinosaur and cries when he thinks he's disappointed me. That's correct. Another pause. When Janet Morrison spoke again, her voice had changed. It was still calm, still controlled, but there was something underneath it that made General Krex's mandibles click nervously. Captain Torres, please connect me to whoever is responsible for taking my child. Krex stepped forward, all four arms spread wide. Human female, I am General Krex of the Vortakian Empire. Your offspring will be returned unharmed if Earth surrenders unconditionally to our superior forces. Oh honey, Janet Morrison said, and somehow she managed to make those two words sound like a death sentence. You have no idea what you've just done. Let me explain something to you. I am the PTA president at Washington Elementary. I once made a grown man cry at a school board meeting because he suggested cutting the music program. What exactly makes you think I'm going to let some purple space crab keep my baby? Commander Yurak leaned over to whisper something to Krex, but the general waved him away. Your threats do not concern us, human. You are one small female against the might of an interstellar empire. One small female. Janet's laugh could have frozen plasma. Oh sweetie. Torres, patch me through to the parent phone tree. The what now? Krex asked. Torres was already working on his communicator. Parent phone tree. It's how human mothers communicate during emergencies. Think of it as a weapon of mass communication. The comm system lit up like a Christmas tree. Suddenly the command center was filled with voices. Angry voices. Very, very angry voices. This is Linda Patterson, and somebody is about to learn why I coached youth soccer for 12 years. Dave Rodriguez, here. I've been to every single one of my daughter's dance recitals. You think I'm scared of aliens? Margaret Chen speaking. I stayed up all night for 3 months when my son had colic. Sleep deprivation is my natural state. What's yours? General Krex was starting to look less confident. These are just voices. Words cannot harm us. Carol Williams, room mom for Mrs. Henderson's 3rd grade class. I once organized a bake sale that raised enough money to buy new playground equipment. You kidnap children, you absolute morons. Do you have any idea how many fundraisers I've run? How many committees I've chaired? The organizational skills I possess. More voices joined in. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. This is Frank Morrison, Tommy's dad. I coach Little League, and I've seen what parents do to umpires who make bad calls. You've made the worst call in galactic history. Jennifer Kim here. I've survived 16 parent-teacher conferences, and 4 years of carpool duty. I've been to Chuck E. Cheese birthday parties. What fresh hell do you think you can show me? Commander Yurak was now frantically checking his tactical displays. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from Earth. Ships launching. Lots of ships. Krex's voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. Military vessels. No sir, Yurak replied, his voice barely above a whisper. According to our scans they appear to be minivans. And school buses. Thousands of them. Torres looked up from his communicator with that same terrifying smile. General, let me explain something about humans that your intelligence reports apparently missed. We don't just love our children, we are absolutely, completely, utterly insane about protecting them. You've just declared war on something more dangerous than any military in the galaxy. What's that? Krex asked. Suburban parents who've been told someone hurt their kids. The comm channels were still buzzing with increasingly creative threats involving bake sale organizational skills and carpool lane enforcement tactics. And in the background, I could hear the sound that would haunt General Krex's nightmares for the rest of his hopefully very short life. The sound of several billion humans getting really upset. Now I've seen planetary mobilizations before. I was there when the Centauri Republic declared war on the Rigel Consortium. That was impressive. Fleets of dreadnoughts, orbital bombardment platforms, the whole 9 yards of military might. Very organized, very professional, very civilized. This was something else entirely. Within 30 minutes of the parent phone tree activation, every news network on Earth had picked up the story. And let me tell you, there's nothing quite like watching human media get their teeth into a story involving kidnapped children. It was like watching piranhas discover a wounded water buffalo. This is Amanda Rodriguez with Channel 7 News, and we have breaking coverage of what experts are already calling the worst diplomatic incident in galactic history. 26 human children from Washington Elementary have been taken hostage by something calling itself the Vortakian Empire. General Krex watched the feed with growing bewilderment. Why are they broadcasting this? Do they not understand tactical security? Torres, who had been monitoring Earth communications, looked up with what might have been pity. General, you're thinking like a military commander. These aren't soldiers responding to a military crisis. These are parents responding to a threat against children. The rules are completely different. On the screen, the news coverage was getting more intense by the minute. Reporters were interviewing child psychologists, education experts, and what appeared to be a very angry woman in a minivan outside a Target store. I'm here with Patricia Williams, a mother of 3 and the head of the Washington Elementary Parent-Teacher Association. Mrs. Williams, what's your response to this situation? Patricia Williams looked directly into the camera with the sort of expression usually reserved for particularly stubborn stains. My response is that someone made the mistake of thinking they could intimidate human parents. I've organized 3 separate fundraisers for the school library, survived 2 years as the costume coordinator for the spring play, and I once spent 14 hours in the emergency room when my youngest ate a Lego. These aliens have no idea what they're dealing with. And what exactly are they dealing with? Mrs. Williams. Every parent, grandparent, teacher, babysitter, and decent human being on this planet. You don't mess with our kids. Period. Commander Yak was frantically updating his tactical displays. Sir, energy signatures from Earth are increasing exponentially. We're tracking over 50,000 individual ship launches. Military craft. Krex asked hopefully. No sir. We're reading minivans, school buses, SUVs, pickup trucks, and what appears to be a converted ice cream truck. All retrofitted with military-grade engines and weapons systems. How is that possible? Torres smiled grimly. You underestimate human ingenuity when properly motivated. Also, you'd be amazed what a determined parent can accomplish with a credit card and access to military surplus stores. The news coverage continued, and it was getting more surreal by the minute. A reporter was now standing outside what looked like a suburban garage where a man in a World's Greatest Dad t-shirt was welding plasma cannons onto a Honda Odyssey. This is Kevin Chen, and as you can see behind me, Mr. Patterson is making some modifications to his family vehicle. Mr. Patterson, can you tell us about your preparations? The man looked up from his welding, pushed his safety goggles up, and spoke with the calm determination of someone who'd spent years assembling IKEA furniture. Well, Susan, I figure if these aliens want to play hardball with our kids, they're going to learn why we call them soccer moms and hockey dads. I've got 3 kids of my own, and I've been to enough youth sports events to know that parents don't mess around when it comes to protecting their children. And the weapons systems? Oh, those? My neighbor Jim works at a defense contractor. Turns out mounting a pulse cannon on a minivan isn't that different from installing a roof rack. Just need to reinforce the frame a bit. Back on the alien ship, General Krex was looking increasingly pale, which was quite an achievement for someone with purple chitinous skin. This is illogical. They're civilians. They have no military training. With respect, sir, Commander Yak said, his voice shaking slightly. Have you ever seen what humans do during something called Black Friday? We have footage from our intelligence division. It's terrifying. Torres nodded solemnly. Parents shopping for Christmas presents have been known to engage in tactical operations that would impress special forces units. And that's just for toys. You've threatened their actual children. The comm channels were lighting up with more reports from Earth. Apparently the story had gone viral on something called social media, and the response was escalating by the hour. This is unbelievable, a reporter was saying. We're getting reports from across the globe. Parent groups in Tokyo are coordinating with PTAs in London. The entire international community of parents has mobilized. We've never seen anything like this level of organization. What kind of organization are we talking about? Well, Jim, you have to remember that these are people who coordinate birthday parties for 25 children, manage carpool schedules that would challenge NASA, and organize school fundraisers that require the logistical complexity of military operations. They're applying those same organizational skills to mounting a rescue operation. General Krex turned to Torres with something that might have been desperation. Surely your military will intervene. They'll establish proper command and control. Torres laughed, and it was not a comforting sound. General, our military is trying to keep up. Half of our personnel are parents themselves. The other half are smart enough to know that when human parents get this angry, you either help them or you get out of the way. Commander Yak cleared his throat nervously. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead elements of the approaching fleet. Put it through. The voice that came through the comm system was calm, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its politeness. This is Linda Patterson, kindergarten teacher at Washington Elementary and coordinator of the Parent Rescue Fleet. We are requesting the immediate and unconditional release of our children. Please respond within the next 10 minutes. And if we refuse, Krex asked. There was a pause. When Linda Patterson spoke again, her voice had the same tone she probably used when explaining to 5-year-olds why we don't hit our classmates with blocks. General Krex. I've been a kindergarten teacher for 15 years. I've dealt with temper tantrums, food fights, and children who've decided that pants are optional. I've organized field trips to the zoo with 40 kids and only lost one, and we found him in the gift shop eating gummy bears. I've survived parent-teacher conferences with parents who think their little angels can do no wrong even when there's crayon evidence on the wall. Another pause. What I'm trying to tell you is that I have reserves of patience and determination that you cannot possibly comprehend. But those reserves do not extend to anyone who threatens children. You have 9 minutes left. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in absolute silence. General Krex looked around the room at his officers, then at the tactical displays showing thousands of approaching human vehicles, then at the screen showing 26 human children who were probably going to go home with the best field trip story in elementary school history. Commander Ryek, he said quietly. Yes, sir. I think we may have made a tactical error. Let me paint you a picture of the most terrifying armada in galactic history. Picture, if you will, a Honda Odyssey with racing stripes, reinforced armor plating, and twin plasma cannons mounted where the roof rack used to be. Now multiply that by about 10,000. Add in school buses that looked like they'd been designed by particularly aggressive kindergartners with unlimited military budgets, and sprinkle in the occasional ice cream truck playing the entertainer while bristling with enough firepower to level a small moon. This was not how invasions were supposed to look. Sir, Commander Ryek reported, his voice cracking like a teenager asking someone to prom. The human fleet has arrived. They're requesting permission to board. Requesting? General Krex asked. Well, sir, technically they said we're coming aboard now, and you can either open the airlocks or we'll make our own doors, but either way, we're getting our kids back. Through the main viewport I could see the most beautiful and terrifying sight in the universe. Thousands of Earth vehicles arranged in perfect formation, each one piloted by someone who had spent years mastering the tactical complexity of suburban parking lots and school pickup lines. These people knew how to navigate chaos, and they were bringing that expertise to bear on an interstellar kidnapping. The lead vessel, a bright red minivan with "Soccer Mom" painted on the side in cheerful yellow letters, pulled alongside the docking bay. Through its windshield, I could see a woman in a pink jogging suit checking her lipstick in the rearview mirror before putting on what appeared to be military-grade power armor. That's Linda Patterson, Torres explained helpfully. Kindergarten teacher, mother of 2, and apparently the field commander for this operation. She's wearing power armor, Krex observed. Standard issue for dealing with 5-year-olds, Torres replied. You have no idea how much damage a determined kindergartner can do with finger paints and unsupervised access to a classroom. The airlock cycled, and Linda Patterson stepped aboard the Vortakian flagship. She was exactly what you'd expect from a kindergarten teacher if kindergarten teachers were routinely called upon to conduct military operations, patient, organized, and radiating the kind of authority that made grown aliens want to apologize for things they hadn't even done yet. Good afternoon, she said, her voice carrying the same tone she probably used for story time. I'm Linda Patterson, and I'm here to collect our children. I trust this won't take long because it's almost lunchtime, and you really don't want to deal with 26 hungry 8-year-olds. General Krex drew himself up to his full height, which was considerably more impressive before Linda Patterson had walked into the room. Human female, you are in violation of, excuse me, Linda interrupted, and somehow those 2 words carried more authority than any military command I'd ever heard. Did you just call me human female? I have a name, sweetie. It's Mrs. Patterson to you. And before we continue this conversation, I need to see the children to verify they're unharmed. You are not in a position to make demands, Krex blustered. Linda Patterson smiled. It was the same smile she probably used when a child claimed the dog ate their homework, and it was absolutely terrifying. Oh honey, she said, pulling out what looked like a tablet computer. Let me show you something. The tablet's screen lit up with a tactical display that would have impressed a military strategist. It showed the Vortakian fleet surrounded by thousands of human vessels, each one tagged with information about its pilot and cargo. This is Carol Williams, Linda said, pointing to a converted school bus. She organized the spring carnival for 3 years running and raised enough money to renovate the entire playground. She's currently operating a boarding craft loaded with angry parents from the 3rd grade class. She swiped to the next screen. This is Frank Morrison. He coached Little League for 8 years and never lost his temper with an umpire, which shows remarkable restraint. He's piloted that ice cream truck out there, and it's loaded with enough firepower to reduce your ship to component atoms. Another swipe. And this is Margaret Chen. She survived the Great Cupcake Controversy of 2023 when the PTA split into two factions over whether store-bought cupcakes should be allowed at the bake sale. She's commanding a tactical squadron of 17 minivans, and frankly, after dealing with that level of political complexity, conquering a space empire is probably going to seem relaxing. General Krex was staring at the tactical display with growing horror. These are just parents, soccer moms and hockey dads, Linda supplied helpfully. Don't forget the hockey dads. They're the ones in the pickup trucks. You ever been to a youth hockey game, General? You ever seen what happens when a parent thinks the referee made a bad call against their kid? Because I have, and it's not pretty. Commander Rek cleared his throat. Ma'am, surely we can reach some sort of diplomatic solution. Perhaps if we return half the children. Half. Linda's voice didn't get louder, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop about 20 degrees. Sweetie, you don't understand how this works. I don't leave any child behind. Not one. Not ever. That's not how teachers work, and it's definitely not how parents work. She turned to General Krex with the patience of someone explaining why we don't put glue in our hair. You see, you made a fundamental miscalculation. You thought you were dealing with a military. You thought you could use our children as leverage because you assumed we'd be reasonable, that we'd weigh the costs and benefits and maybe sacrifice a few to save the many. Another swipe on her tablet showed feeds from the approaching human fleet. Parents were suiting up in everything from military surplus gear to homemade armor that looked like it had been crafted from kitchen appliances and pure determination. But we're not a military, General. We're parents. And parents don't negotiate when it comes to their children. We don't compromise. We don't accept losses. We don't calculate acceptable casualties. Through the viewport, more human vehicles were arriving by the minute. The diversity was staggering: converted RVs driven by grandparents, motorcycles operated by single dads, and what appeared to be a food truck that was somehow bristling with weapons while still maintaining its Jenny's Tacos sign. Ma'am, Krex said, and for the first time, his voice carried a note of something that might have been respect. What exactly do you want? Linda Patterson smiled again, but this time, it was the smile she probably used when a student finally understood a difficult concept. I want our children back, unharmed, and right now. I want a formal apology to each parent, personally signed by you. I want your empire to implement a no-touching human children's policy with severe penalties for violations. And I want you to understand that this is the only warning you're going to get. And if we refuse. Linda looked out at the massive fleet of modified civilian vehicles, each one crewed by parents who had spent years perfecting the art of getting things done despite impossible odds and insufficient resources. Then you're going to learn why humans have a saying: never underestimate the power of a determined parent. Because, General, you haven't just threatened our children. You've threatened our babies. And there is no force in the universe more dangerous than a parent who thinks someone hurt their baby. Commander Rek was frantically checking his sensors. Sir, we're detecting more ships arriving. Thousands more. Military reinforcements, Krex asked hopefully. No sir, these appear to be teachers, and babysitters, and what our computers are identifying as concerned community members. Sir, I think the entire planet is coming here. Linda Patterson nodded approvingly. Word gets around fast in parent networks. By now every adult who's ever cared about a child knows what happened here. They're not coming as soldiers, General. They're coming as the most terrifying force in the known universe, which is people who love children and are really upset that someone threatened them. And that's when General Krex finally understood the true scope of his mistake. He hadn't kidnapped military personnel or government officials or even particularly important humans. He had kidnapped someone's babies. And now he was facing the consequences of that action in the form of several thousand parents who had temporarily set aside their busy schedules to come explain to him personally why that was a bad idea.
Now, I've been present for a lot of tense negotiations in my career. I've seen trade disputes that lasted months, territorial arguments that required 3 mediators and a therapist, and diplomatic standoffs that made grown ambassadors cry into their coffee. But I had never in all my years of service witnessed anything quite like watching a 4-armed alien warlord attempt to negotiate with a kindergarten teacher who was running low on patience. General Krex straightened all 4 of his shoulders and tried to project the authority that had served him well in conquering 17 star systems. Mrs. Patterson, perhaps we can reach a compromise. We return 20 of the children now, and the remainder when Earth agrees to our terms. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that happens right before a tornado hits. Linda Patterson tilted her head slightly, and I swear I could hear every parent in the fleet outside collectively take a deep breath. I'm sorry, she said in the same tone she probably used when a child suggested that maybe they didn't need to wash their hands before lunch. Did you just suggest that I leave 6 children behind? It's a reasonable military compromise, Krex said, apparently not recognizing the warning signs that everyone else in the room could see clear as day. Surely you understand that some casualties are acceptable in. Stop. That single word carried the weight of 15 years of classroom management, countless parent-teacher conferences, and the accumulated authority of someone who had successfully explained to hundreds of children why sharing is important and hitting is not allowed. Let me explain something to you, General Krex. Linda continued, her voice still perfectly calm and somehow more terrifying for it. I am a kindergarten teacher. Do you know what that means? Krex's mandibles clicked uncertainly. You educate small humans. I am responsible for the safety, education, and well-being of 26 children every single day. Not 20. Not most of them. Not the easy ones. All 26. Every single day I make sure every single child in my care goes home safe to their parents. She began walking slowly around the command center, and seasoned alien warriors actually stepped back to give her room. When little Jimmy Chen has a meltdown because someone took his favorite crayon, I don't negotiate with the crayon thief. I solve the problem. When Sarah Rodriguez falls off the monkey bars and scrapes her knee, I don't explain to her mother that playground injuries are an acceptable casualty of recess. I patch her up and make sure it doesn't happen again. Commander Rierick whispered something to his aide, who immediately began backing toward the exit. When Tommy Morrison decides that the classroom rules don't apply to him because he's having a bad day, I don't compromise and let him follow half the rules. I very patiently explain why the rules exist, and then I make sure he follows all of them. She stopped directly in front of General Krex, looked up at his considerably taller frame, and smiled with the infinite patience of someone who had spent years dealing with creatures who were both smaller and considerably more irrational than the average alien warlord. So when you suggest that I should accept leaving some of my children behind, you're essentially suggesting that I should fundamentally change who I am as a person. And General, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I'm really good at it. The communication system crackled to life, and Torres stepped forward. General, we're receiving multiple transmissions from the parent fleet. Should I put them through? Before Krex could answer, Linda nodded to Torres, who activated the comm system. Suddenly, the command center was filled with voices from the assembled parent armada. This is Patricia Williams, and I've organized enough bake sales to fund a small military. Whatever you're thinking of offering, the answer is no unless it's all of our children, right now. Dave Rodriguez here. I've coached youth soccer for 8 years. I've seen what happens when parents think their kids are being treated unfairly. You really don't want to find out what happens when they know for certain that their kids are in danger. Margaret Chen speaking. I survived the great class parent election of 2022, where 3 different mothers campaigned for the position like it was the presidency. If I can handle that level of political complexity, I can certainly handle one purple space lobster with delusions of grandeur. The voices kept coming, each one more calmly terrifying than the last. This is Carol Martinez. I've been to every single one of my daughter's dance recitals, including the 4-hour one where they performed the entire Nutcracker with 8-year-olds. I have reserves of patience you cannot comprehend, but they do not extend to anyone who threatens children. Jennifer Kim here. I once spent 6 hours in an emergency room with a child who decided to see if a Lego would fit up his nose. Spoiler alert, it did, but getting it out was complicated. The point is, I don't give up on children. Ever. General Krex was beginning to look like someone who had just realized he'd accidentally declared war on natural forces like gravity or thermodynamics. This is Frank Patterson, Linda's husband. I want you to know that my wife is the most patient, kind, understanding person you'll ever meet. She once spent 3 hours helping a child tie his shoes because he was determined to do it himself. But if you think that patience extends to anyone who hurts kids, you're about to discover why I've been married to the most terrifyingly competent person on the planet for 20 years. Linda smiled at that last transmission. Frank's sweet. He always supports my work. Commander Rierick nervously approached his general. Sir, perhaps we should consider their terms. We are somewhat outnumbered. Outnumbered. Krex looked at his tactical displays. We have a fleet of advanced warships crewed by trained military personnel. They have civilian vehicles operated by parents. Yes, sir, Rierick replied quietly. Parents who have spent years managing complex logistics, organizing group activities, mediating disputes between irrational small humans, and somehow maintaining their sanity while doing it. Parents who consider getting 26 children safely through a field trip to be a normal Tuesday. The comm system activated again, And this time it was a voice that made everyone in the command center stand a little straighter. "This is Admiral Rebecca Harrison, Earth Defense Force. I'm also the mother of Emma Harrison, age 8, who is currently on your ship. General Krex, I want you to understand something very clearly." Even General Krex seemed to recognize the authority in that voice. "I have commanded fleets in 3 different star systems. I have negotiated ceasefires, planned strategic operations, and maintained discipline among some of the most elite military units in human space. But right now, I'm not speaking to you as an admiral. I'm speaking to you as a mom whose little girl is scared and far from home." There was a pause that seemed to stretch for eternity. "You have 30 seconds to begin releasing our children, or I'm going to stop being a professional military officer and start being a very angry mother with access to orbital bombardment platforms. And General, I think you're about to learn that there's a reason human parents have been successfully raising children for thousands of years despite the fact that children are basically tiny suicidal maniacs, with no survival instincts." "What reason is that?" Krex asked weakly. "Because we're very very good at protecting them from anything that threatens them, including 4-armed purple space lobsters with poor decision-making skills." The transmission ended, and the command center fell silent, except for the sound of General Krex's breathing, which had become noticeably more rapid. Linda Patterson checked her watch, a simple digital one that probably had an alarm set for snack time. "General," she said with the patience of someone who had explained the same basic concept to thousands of children over the years, "you have about 20 seconds to make the right choice here. Because I can promise you that every single parent out there is running out of patience, and when parents run out of patience, things get very complicated very quickly." She gestured toward the viewport, where the human fleet was now arranged in what looked suspiciously like the formation used for elementary school pickup lines, if elementary school pickup lines were armed with military-grade weapons and operated by people who had reached the end of their tolerance for nonsense. "So what's it going to be? Are you going to return our children and apologize like a civilized being, or are you going to find out what happens when several thousand parents decide that diplomacy has failed, and it's time to solve this problem the way parents have been solving problems since the dawn of time?" "How do parents solve problems?" General Krex asked, though he seemed afraid to hear the answer. Linda Patterson's smile was gentle, understanding, and absolutely terrifying. "Very thoroughly, General. Very very thoroughly." What happened next will go down in galactic history as either the fastest surrender on record or the most sensible decision General Krex ever made, depending on who you ask. Personally, I think it was both. The general looked around his command center at officers who were suddenly finding their boots very interesting, then at the tactical displays showing several thousand human vehicles arranged in what could only be described as an aggressively patient formation, then back at Linda Patterson, who was still smiling with the terrifying serenity of someone who had never met a problem she couldn't solve. "Commander Yurak," he said quietly. "Yes, sir. Release the children. All of them. Right now." "Sir. Right now, Commander. And someone find me whatever passes for formal apology stationery on this ship." The relief that washed over the command center was almost palpable. Even the hardened alien warriors seemed to sag with something that looked suspiciously like gratitude that they wouldn't have to find out what several thousand angry parents could accomplish when they really put their minds to it. 10 minutes later, 26 human children were being escorted to the main docking bay, chattering excitedly about their awesome space adventure and already planning their show and tell presentations. Kids, as it turns out, are remarkably resilient when it comes to accidentally ending up in the middle of interstellar incidents. Linda Patterson supervised the reunion with the efficiency of someone who had managed countless field trips, making sure each child was accounted for, unharmed, and properly hugged by their respective parents. Watching her work was like watching a master craftsperson at the height of their profession, if that profession happened to be keeping small humans safe and happy under impossible circumstances. "Tommy Morrison, did you remember to thank the nice aliens for the tour of their spaceship?" "Yes, Mrs. Patterson. Even though they were kind of scary looking, they gave us juice boxes." "That's very polite of them." "Jennifer Chen, do you have your backpack?" "Right here, Mrs. Patterson. Can we do this field trip again next year?" "Let's see how this one turns out first, sweetheart." General Krex approached Linda Patterson with what appeared to be a formal document written on some sort of official-looking alien parchment. His posture suggested someone who had just learned a very important lesson about the fundamental forces of the universe.
Mrs. Patterson, he said, offering the document with all four hands in what I assumed was a gesture of maximum respect in Vortakian culture. I have prepared formal apologies for each family, along with compensation for the inconvenience and distress caused by our tactical error. Linda reviewed the document with the same attention to detail she probably applied to field trip permission slips. This looks very thorough, General. I appreciate the effort you've put into taking responsibility for your actions. I have also issued new standing orders throughout the Vortakian Empire. Krex continued, his voice carrying the tone of someone who was very eager to make sure this never happened again. All military personnel are now required to undergo training in what our xenobiologists are calling human parent recognition and avoidance protocols. That seems wise, Linda agreed. Commander Yurak stepped forward nervously. Ma'am, if I may ask, how did your people organize such an effective response so quickly? Our intelligence suggested that human civilian populations were largely disorganized and ineffective in crisis situations. Linda Patterson laughed, the same warm laugh she probably used when a child asked why the sky was blue or where babies came from. Oh honey, your intelligence was wrong about a lot of things. You see, parents aren't disorganized, we just organize differently than military units do. She gestured toward the viewport, where the human fleet was already beginning to form up for the return journey to Earth. Each vehicle somehow finding its place in the formation with the same efficiency that characterized school pickup lines and carpool coordination. When you're responsible for getting 26 children safely through a day that includes math lessons, art projects, recess, lunch, and a field trip to see actual spaceships, you develop certain organizational skills. When you coordinate with other parents to manage sports schedules, birthday parties, school events, and emergency contact networks, you learn how to communicate quickly and effectively. She looked directly at General Krex. And when someone threatens our children, all of those skills get focused on a single objective. It's not military training, General. It's something much more fundamental. What's that? Love, combined with really excellent project management skills. Torres stepped forward, apparently ready to begin the formal diplomatic cleanup that would follow this incident. General Krex, Earth will expect formal treaties regarding the protection of human civilians, particularly children, and comprehensive changes to Vortakian military doctrine. Of course, Krex replied immediately. Whatever Earth requires, we'll also need to establish protocols for future diplomatic contact that don't involve kidnapping anyone. Naturally, Linda Patterson gathered her students with the practiced efficiency of someone who had been managing group activities for years. All right, everyone, let's get ready to head home. Make sure you have all your belongings, and remember to write thank you notes to Captain Torres for helping us today. As the children filed past General Krex toward the docking bay, several of them waved cheerfully at the alien commander who had inadvertently provided them with the most exciting field trip in elementary school history. "Bye, Mr. Purple Space Guy," called out Tommy Morrison. "Thanks for the juice boxes. Your spaceship is really cool," added Jennifer Chen. "But next time maybe ask our parents first before inviting us over." General Krex watched them go with something that might have been wonder. "They're not afraid of us. Children are remarkably adaptable," Linda explained. "They were never in any real danger because you never intended to hurt them. They knew that even if they couldn't articulate it. Children are much better at reading intentions than adults give them credit for. But their parents saw their children in potential danger and responded accordingly. That's what parents do, General. It's what we've always done." As the last of the children boarded the transport that would take them back to their families, Linda Patterson turned to address both the alien command staff and Captain Torres. "I hope this has been a learning experience for everyone involved. General Krex, I trust that the Vortakian Empire will remember this lesson going forward." "We will never forget it," Krex replied solemnly. "Mrs. Patterson, may I ask you something?" "Of course. How do you do it? How do you manage to be so calm and patient while simultaneously being so formidable?" Linda Patterson smiled, and for the first time since this whole incident began, it was just a normal warm teacher's smile. "General, I work with 5-year-olds for a living. They're basically tiny humans with no impulse control, unlimited energy, and a complete disregard for personal safety. They ask why about everything, they have strong opinions about snack distribution, and they think the rules don't apply to them when they're having a bad day." She paused to let that sink in. After 15 years of successfully keeping children like that safe, happy and educated, dealing with one 4-armed alien warlord who made a poor decision was honestly not that challenging. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the Vortakian Empire learned the most important lesson in galactic relations: never under any circumstances, mess with someone's kids.
Because somewhere out there, their parents are just waiting for an excuse to show you exactly why human children have managed to survive and thrive despite being the most impractical creatures in the known universe. It's because their parents are absolutely, completely, utterly devoted to protecting them, and they're really, really good at it. 3 months later, General Krex received a package from Earth. Inside was a handmade thank you card from Mrs. Patterson's kindergarten class, 26 individual drawings of spaceships and aliens, and a copy of the class photo from their space adventure field trip. At the bottom, in Linda Patterson's neat handwriting, was a note: "Thank you for being such good hosts, and for learning an important lesson about the power of parents." The children had a wonderful time and learned so much about space travel and interspecies diplomacy. We hope this experience helps you make better decisions in the future. General Krex had the photo framed and hung it in his office as a permanent reminder of the day he learned that the most dangerous force in the universe isn't advanced technology or superior firepower. It's a parent who thinks someone threatened their child. And frankly, after witnessing what I witnessed that day, I have to agree with him.